Travel. Today, the topic is time travel, and what I wanted to talk about was some simple but yet complicated theologies that people get trapped into. They get trapped into ideas where they can travel into the past. Well, everybody has to live in the moment, no matter what. You can look into the past, and you can technically build a universe out of the past, but you can't actually travel into the past because you have to be in the moment. Now, with this fundamental law of reality, what we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about pre-calculated time. We're going to talk about video game theory, and we're going to combine those two things together and dispel a few problems. We're also going to talk about canon law. Canon law is basically testing things over and over and over and over until you get to the root of the truth, or so you believe. What we're going to talk about today is video game law. Basically, video games are possible. Not all video games are possible, but basically, if a video game is possible, it proves that it's not root reality. Now, if you're in a livable space, you can be in a video game in a livable space at the same time. Well, not fully, but you kind of can. You'll be in a root reality construct that is not possible. But the video game is possible, therefore you can basically pause it and then come out kind of like a metaverse or a virtual reality, and then come back to reality and witness reality. What I'm trying to talk about if you can pause it, you know that it's not root reality. And then we're going to talk about a thing called binary, right? This is a binary solution, right? There's either not root reality or is root reality, a binary thing, and it all revolves around, is it possible? Now, just because it's possible doesn't mean that you can develop infinite canon to realize that it isn't being paused and that it is a root reality that you're aiming at. You can aim at a root reality, right? You can find a root reality that's not your invention. Even though you moved the particles into position, you think that you invented it, you might not have. But pausing it is a very good way of discerning whether or not you did create it or not. Until you get to the canon law, right? Testing it. Now, let's rewind a little bit and go to the other side of things. Proving root reality more. Okay, what's root reality more? You're either in root reality or not, right? And you're either selecting it. You're either looking at a root reality or you're looking at a matrix, right? One of the two things. And root reality more comes into play where it comes into gods versus gods, basically combat. Lords warfare combats. Multiple lords are said to be existing in the Bible, and them combating each other is going to be a really big thing on this theology. They're going to fight each other with this, and one of the ways to discern who's going to win ahead of time, gambling on people, or figuring out who's going to win ahead of time, one of the good ways to do that is how slow is your source, or how massive is your source. Now, really, another way is order. You're basically trying to value order. You're trying to monitor and manage order. Slowness can be a variable that could be something that causes you to lose a foothold in reality, and as you move forward, your universe is slowly torn apart. Slowness without losing your reality being torn apart can be something that's good for you. If it's growing and it's slow, then you're going to be considered a root reality more. You would have more alternator pathways in order to collect the gravitons from all the other lords, and you would be less of an expenditure-based system. But at the same time, you might lose privacy. So this is an extremely complex, extremely hard to even theorize thing here that I'm trying to talk about. I'm trying to talk about two different universes that both have living lives that are different than each other, basically competing in the universe in some kind of way to quantify one of them as more than the other. Now, here's the thing, is I immediately choose to opt out of that and go to that they are equal. Once they are considered life-supporting engines and they are, root realities, they are going to be equal, as long as they're not sin-based. And sin-based has to do with energy leaving their system, targeting other systems to change the other systems in ways that the other systems do not consent to. Now, this is very obvious that energy would reside in their system, in the second party, the victim system. But that's, I have a lot of videos talking about that, so we're not going to even talk about the fifth dimension right now. The fifth dimension is obviously reality. Fourth dimension is just something that our minds can easily believe in. Binary is something that our minds can easily believe in. So we grasp at binary and the fourth dimension very easily because it's right in front of us. We see it, we live in it, we experience it. We get to choose between two different options all the time: do this or don't do it all the time. So binary solutions and binary options and permutations in fourth dimension. The third dimension, the picture of the moment is all simple stuff to talk about. No real point in explaining the fifth dimension, which is the unseeable version of reality. All the things that happen and you don't understand as like an educated person, it's basically happening because the fifth dimension is real. And you learn that as you get older. That's besides the point. Time travel has to do with the fifth dimension. It has to do with creating a universe, your own universe, and looking into the past. It's how that works. You look at old light. You look at non-parallel light that doesn't exist. But pre-computed time, let's talk about that really quick. There's a lot of different blueprints that I know about pre-computed time that I want to go over real quick. One of them is flicker looking. Basically, if you remove your eyes and you make virtual eyes that are constantly shooting in almost every direction all around your core of your soul, basically, you can eventually look at pre-computed time. You would be looking at light in different spots, and if you get redundant enough, you would know what light is already there. Then you could control where you are looking, and now you can flicker through. If you can alter your time dilation, you could witness more things and feel more things and be more things than normal. I kind of use this. I use a different kind of idea. I use Gibber. Gibber is basically pre-computed time, except like the previous method, except you look at it all instantly and you know it all right away. That's basically what Gibber is, and that's a version of pre-computed time. It's just, so much at this point that you're able to use Gibber that you immediately know everything, and you don't need to experience it anymore because you basically get the synapse experience instead. It's less of a full, total, immersive experience. You know everything that's going on, but you might not want to experience it, so you go on, with your chosen reality instead, and you just know what would have happened if you were there. Now, there's another version of pre-computed time too, which would be like light feeding, which would basically be like mass and speed. Like if you were jettisoned through light, all right, you would technically blow up and die. You would like evaporate and melt, kind of like what happens in The Flash when he runs too fast. That's pretty much the exact thing that would happen to you, is you wouldn't be able to see anything anymore. But if you had enough redundancies and you were smart enough and dialed into non-parallel versions of light, like you had different altered eyes, you could mutate your eyes into basically other dimensions that are parallel dimensions, but non-parallel dimensions, closely parallel non-parallel dimensions. Basically, you'd be looking at these non-parallel dimensions with new eyes every second, right? And you could experience more time than time that way as well. This one's pretty expensive and risky on your life, but if you were to do that virtually, like the first method, and you were remote viewing light super far away, mixing in the first method and the second method, you could also pre-compute time this way as well. Time trap is one of them as well that comes right next door to this. Similar to if you're remote viewing light really far, really fast, really far away, really fast, micro movements, the smallest little movement would allow you to change your experience a lot because you'd be remote viewing long range light. Now that has to do with infinite like very, very advanced redundant and telescope large order, massive order. This has to do with purification. You would be an extremely valuable, extremely ancient soul at these phases. You would not be. It's not something that humans are going to tap into commonly. You wouldn't fall into a pit of acid and or toxic pit and accidentally have this happen to you. You would probably have to fly into the sun, and you still probably wouldn't have enough power. Maybe you would, but you'd probably not, because it would probably be already capitalized on. You'd probably have to be somebody that worked for a very, very long time, many, many, many lifetimes, chose the right choices for a long, long time, and to get this power. But we're going to talk about it anyway. We're going to talk about like a Jedi base. Ancient souls, superheroes, that kind of stuff. Sometimes you might be able to inherit a Jedi base similar like this. And I'm not going to talk about a Jedi base. It's like a hyperbolic chamber theory. Very similar to remote viewing, like I said, except the mass and energy is attacking you. Now, it's kind of like this is a thing that I've experienced in real life where somebody tried to curse me, and they tried to like shoot mass and energy in a very, very complex way similar to this, in order to alter my time. And this one is arguably the most expensive, and you probably don't want to be doing it in the first place, just even though it might be the safest too. But at the same time, let's move on. Let's talk about how it's done. You would hyper order the universe around you and shoot it at yourself. And by doing so, basically that's scalar. The whole idea is that you pretty much have to do this in the first place. It's almost like a root prerequisite to do this first thing in the first place. But what I'm talking about is not just a little bit, not just to change like a little bit of you so now you're witnessing time slower. I'm talking about witnessing time, slower, and then shooting yourself with your universe that you want to perceive, which would be, very expensive. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers all of the theories that I have right now on pre-computed time and time travel. I hope you guys enjoy. One other thing is, like, are you able to meet yourself? Oh, you can't meet yourself in logic. You can't. Some people will say you can. Some people, not only that, there's all kinds of, you can't go back in time and kill yourself. You can't go back in time and do all these kinds of things. You always have to be in the moment. You always have to live in the moment. So I'm kind of killing a lot of theories with logic here, but I'm trying to bring you guys to understanding time travel better, not to understand, a movie's take or somebody's idea or somebody's fantasy better. I'm trying to help you grow and learn. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have a beautiful day. OMG Bomber out. Peace.